Hi, I'll show you in this video how to build a Python code that you can use directly on SDA. And we'll be using Cisco DNAC Sandbox. So you don't have to build your own lab or set up an account. You can use it directly from your own browser or from your terminal, as we're going to build a Python code from scratch. When you're authenticated on DNAC, you'll land on this page, and that's the main dashboard. And you can see that there are a couple of devices. Essentially, there are 4 devices, and we want to be able to get the same information but using our Python code. Now, to get an output like this, we have to take some steps. So first, we have to be successfully authenticated, and once the authentication is successful, we're going to extract the token value. And this token value is what is going to allow us to query the network devices or to query the number of sites on DNAC. So let's go to the terminal and start writing our code. Okay, we'll start by creating a file, and we're going to name it SDA PY. So that's the Python extension. And we'll start by importing requests. We'll import also JSON and URL lib3. So first, we're going to disable the warnings related to self-signed certificates. So for that, we're going to use URL lib3, and we want to disable warning. Next, we're going to store the URL to get to DNAC. So that's going to be inside a variable. I'm going to name it base URL. And I'm just going to grab the URL directly from the browser and paste inside it. Now we have to save the address where the authentication will take place. And that's going to be authentication endpoint. And the address is DNA System API v1 auth token. Now we're going to store the credentials. So we'll create 2 new variables, username, and the username will be devnetuser, and the password will be Cisco123 and exclamation. So now we have all the pieces required to be authenticated. So we'll be using requests and posts, and we're going to send the URL, and it's going to be base URL plus authentication endpoint. And we want to pass the authentication, so it's going to be authentication, and we're going to pass both variables, username and password, and we want to disable verification of self-signed certificate. Now the outputs, the response will be returned in JSON format, so we want to convert this into JSON, and we want to store this inside a variable response. Okay, so let's display this and see what it's going to look like. And yep, let's save. And now if we look at the file, okay, and let's run this. Okay, and we were successfully authenticated, and we got this response with token and its value. So actually what we need is the value for this token. So we want to update our code to only store or to only display the token. So let me change this, and let's save to see how it's going to look like. Okay, and that's great. So now we're going to save these actually inside a variable. So we're going to name this token. Let me do it again. Okay, so we want to store the response inside this variable token. Okay, so now we can create the header that will be used whenever we send a request to DNAC. So we're going to create another variable header, and it's going to take the following values. So the first one will be X out token, and it's going to take the token value, and the other one will be accept, and this is going to take application JSON format. Okay, so our header is okay. So if we want to query the network devices on DNAC, so we can look at the URL. So if we go to devices, we can see that this is the API that will allow us to get the number of devices or the devices details. So we want to use this path. So it's network device, so that's what we're going to use now. If we go back to the code, and we want to create a new variable, and we're going to name it devices. So the devices will be we have to type the same address, so it's going to be DNA intent API v1 network device. Okay, and now we want to send these to DNAC. So we want to say devices response. We're going to use the request and get function, and we want to send the parameters. Actually it has to be URL, and we're going to use f string, and going to pass base URL. We're going to combine this with the new variable devices. Okay, and we want to pass the headers variable, and we don't want to verify self-signed certificate. We have to convert this to JSON as well, and if everything is okay, we want to display this. So we use the JSON dumps, and it takes two values, two parameters, and it's going to be devices response indent equals q. Okay, so it looks like everything is okay. So let's save this and run our code again. Okay, and we are able to get the devices on DNAC, but as we can see, it's a noise response, right? We have a lot of information, but it's we don't need all of this, so we're going to select some part of information that we want. So just like we saw on DNAC, we have device name, IP address, MAC address, and device role. So let's see if we can only get this information and display it in a pretty way and readable format as well. So if we bring our sheet, so let's see. So first we have to get this from response. Okay, and which information we want. We might look at the MAC address, and let me pass here. We want the management IP. Take a look at the management IP. We have host name. Yeah, we gonna get this management IP as well. And what else? So we have management IP. Go back to the browser and let me see. So management, so MAC address, host name, management IP, and device role. Okay, so the last one should be the role, and the role should be here. Okay, great. And let's save it here. Okay, now back to our code. We want to filter the output to only display what we want. So we're going to comment this, and we want to import tabulate. So actually from tabulate import tabulate. Okay, and so one of the parameters used with tabulate is the headers. So we want to create the headers first. So I'm going to use a variable and name it table header, and the header will be the information that we want to see. So the first one will be MAC address. Okay, the next one is going to be host name and management IP. So I'm just going to say IP address, and the last one should be role. Okay, now we're going to create an empty variable. So we're just going to name it list, and we're going to feed these. We're going to extract from the response, and we're going to use for to iterate over this result that we got. So we're going to name it for x can be n value in devices response, and we want to start collecting these from this key response. So pass this response. Okay, so let's first see if this is going to work. So we're going to print x, and let's select one of the fields there, and let's select MAC address. I'm going to pass this, so it should display all the MAC address. So let's save this and run the code again. Oh yes, my mistake here. I have to pause this. Okay, now let's do it again. Okay, and we are able to get the MAC address from the devices. So we're just going to improve this a little bit. So we're going to delete this because we already know it's working. So okay, so I'm going to create another variable, and that's going to be table role. So table role is going to get all the information we want, and then it's going to add to the table. So the first one will be MAC address, and the other ones will be host name. Okay, and the other one will be the management IP address, and the last one will be goal. Okay, so we want to get all of this information. We're going to add to the tables. We're going to use append, and append we get the values from table row. Okay, so looks like everything is placed. So now we're going to display these. We'll be using tabulate. Tabulate will have table and table header, and we want to pass also the table format. It's going to be equal to fancy grid. Okay, I believe everything is in place. So we have tabulate, and we are sending both parameters, table and table header, and we using their table format to fancy grid. Okay, Let's test this and confirm that I just saved these changes. Okay, let's do it. Okay, and look at that. We have the output clear and pretty as well, so we can see the MAC address of these devices, their host names, the IP address, and their roles as well. And we can extract more information if we want, just by looking at the API documentation. So if we want to get the number of devices, the sites, images available on DNAC, we can do that as well. So take your time playing with this code, see what you can improve. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in a bit.